Welcome to episode 12 of the UnLearn show. All five of the co-hosts are absolutely thrilled for the next 20 to 30 minutes to be spending time with Marcus Aurelius Anderson. Marcus, gift of adversity, you're going to tell us about this. You died twice on the table. You were paralyzed, never supposed to walk again, but yet here you are talking about how you actualize success. Welcome to the UnLearn show. Please feel free to tell us a little bit about yourself. We're excited to talk to you today.
I'm excited to talk to all of you. This is a murderer's row of just talent to be able to talk to this morning. So I'm excited, and thank you so much for having me. I'm honored, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Thanks.
So a little bit about me, is that what you were saying?
Please.
Yeah. Of course. I'm a TEDx speaker. I'm a keynote speaker. I'm an author of the book, The Gift of Adversity, and I'm an executive mindset coach. And as you mentioned before, I went through a bit of a rough patch when I was 40. So yeah, it was tough, but it was beautiful because it takes like pain and discomfort to get our attention. It takes something to really slap us in the face and get our attention to say, look at what's going on. So when most people are 40 years old, you know, they have kids and they have a white picket fence and 2 cars, and they're looking at their mortgage and they're established in a profession. And I woke up broke, divorced, bedridden, and paralyzed at 40, wondering if I was ever going to be able to walk again. So it really makes you take a look at perspective, and it makes you look at your life and realize what you're doing may not be what you want to do, or you may be doing things for other people. And that was a big reality check for me. It had me, knock me down to brass tacks. And once you're there, the beauty of it is, even though you've lost everything, you can build up anything. And that's kind of where I began.
Gosh, pressure's on for a question. Okay. Okay. Huge respect. Huge. Like, I can't even verbalize that, because overcoming something so intense, it's like you were meant to be a warrior. You were born to kick butt. I'll watch my language, guys. Don't worry. So behind all of that, like, what's your foundation for strength? What do you use as your foundation to overcome every single challenge that life brings you?
I had a lot of martial arts training when I was little. I started at 11 years old. Having a name, being named by your grandfather, Marcus Aurelius, puts a little bit of pressure on you. It kind of makes you look around and you have to figure out who this guy is. So Stoicism was kind of built into that martial arts ideology from Taoism, Zen. That helped a lot. And it was always beaten to your head about resilience, about overcoming, about understanding that this is an opportunity, it's not a setback. But to be real with everybody, it's not easy. That you will go through a point where you will, I broke down and cried. I was in the darkest place of my life. I was suicidal. I would have taken my life if I was physically able. So it's okay to understand that it is going to be difficult and that you're not always going to feel strong. You're going to feel defeated at times. But what you have to understand is that you don't stay there. You can fall down when you're learning to walk when you're a kid, but if you stop walking and say, oh, this isn't for me, you're not going to get anywhere. So understand that the opportunity is always present in adversity. So whatever you're facing right now, whether it be a hardship at a job or a relationship or looking for purpose, understand that hardship is your true north. It indicates that you either need to move to change or that you're going the correct direction. So if you look at it like that, it doesn't seem nearly as daunting. But if you look at this huge mountain that you have to climb and you say, God, I'm never going to get there, don't do that. Just think about where you're going to put your next handhold, where you're going to put your next foothold. Lay the next brick perfectly. Don't worry about anything else. And then do it again and just repeat. And before you know it, you're at the top.
That's awesome. I love that you view challenge as opportunity. That's super cool.
We have to in today's day and age. If you're an entrepreneur or anything, it's going to be every day. And you can't Google the answer most of the time. You got to figure it out yourself. So.
Oh, I was going to ask you about the Marcus Aurelius thing, because I feel like that's a lot to live up to. Like, I feel like you have to inherently be like stoic in order to have that name. But since you already answered that one, I guess walk us back. So, I mean, you've been through it, right? Like as far as like with your spinal injury, like dying, telling you like you're not going to be able to walk. So, what was the moment? Like, what was the like your lowest point that you were like, okay, like this is it. I'm not going any lower. I gotta move on. Like what did that look like?
It's tough because I thought that I was going to be able to get over it in a couple of weeks. I was like, oh, I died on the operating table. Walking's not a big deal. And then they told me if I wasn't able to walk within the first week, basically, that the nerve damage was going to be too permanent and I was going to be like that for the rest of my life. And then by the time I got out of the ICU, that's exactly what had happened. So I kind of had to go through all the phases of, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. But I knew deep down from all the strength training that I had done with mental resilience from martial arts that I had to have something to offset it. And I was very angry. I was mad at everybody. So the opposite of anger is gratitude or love. But it was hard for me to find anything to be grateful for because even though I was alive, I felt like I was just, existing. I wasn't really making a difference to anybody. So what I was able to do is instead of looking at me, and I, at my situation, how I didn't like what was going on, I looked at the lesson coming from the idea of, well, the only thing I can learn from this is that luckily nobody else got hurt. If we had been deployed and this had happened, there would have been other people killed, probably trying to save me. There may have been a helicopter shot down trying to, medically evac me out. So the thing I was grateful for was that nobody else got hurt. And when I was able to have that little bit of gratitude, I was able to build on it. And about a week after that, being truly grateful for something, that's whenever I started getting some feeling back in my hands. So that was pretty powerful for me.
Marcus, clearly you have, well, we've already talked about this, these huge valleys of adversity that you've dealt with. What do you tell someone that hasn't had something that massive in their life go on about using the adversity that they do have to use that brick by brick mentality? Because I feel like there's a lot of people that maybe can't even relate to your story. They just go, wow, that's amazing. So what's something you might tell someone like me, right, who hasn't died on the table or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, and Jake, the thing is, it's all relative. There's no competition when it comes to adversity. In my TED talk, I mentioned all the other people in the world that are, undertaking worse things than what I am right now. So what we have to do is you have to get your own adversity scale. So you say, this is on 10, this is the worst thing that's happened in my life. At 0, this is like, heaven on earth. So ask yourself, and it's kind of a gut check. It's a litmus test. You say, okay, what's the worst thing that's ever happened to me in my life? And then you think about that. And then you say, okay, now what am I facing right now? And lots of times you realize that whatever was a 10 is way up there. And whatever you're facing now is usually down the rung, like maybe even a 2 or a 3. And if you do that, I'm not saying it to like guilt shame people. I'm saying it to show people that they are capable of much more than what they realize. And that adversity is the thing that will spur you to find that. So if you see it as an opportunity, as a companion, as almost like an adversary that trains you harder to get better, then you'll see it as that. But if you just see it as something that is just soul sucking and, oh, I'm never going to get through this, unfortunately, you'll get stuck in that mindset. And then it'll be really hard to get out of it once you're there. So that's what I would say is like, understand that it's an opportunity to get better at whatever it is. It shines a light on your shortcoming, and now you have to improve.
So you someone like Toph Evans, for example, right? He talks about putting himself in adversity on purpose to train himself. Is that something that you also recommend for people on some scale?
On any scale that you can think of. I do it when I try to train, when I'm doing something physical. Obviously, my training has to be modified because of my injury, but I do things that, like, for example, physically, they call it the Tabata protocol. It's 20 seconds of full exertion. It's like a sprint, and then 10 seconds off. You do that 8 times, so that's 4 minutes. And 4 minutes isn't very long unless you're doing that, where you're going as hard as you can. And what it does is it forces your body to adapt. It forces you to push. And even though you're training your body, it's really your mind that you're trying to get to. So by doing that, that helps build that resilience. And then the same thing, I've talked about it before, I fast twice a week. And what that does is that helps me basically prolong my pleasure, so to speak, or, put it off. And that way it helps me understand that by distancing myself from this thing I'm trying to get, it helps build that resilience. And it doesn't mean that you have to fast all the time. It means you could say, you know what, I'm going to have coffee at noon. And then to make it a mental exercise, say, well, I'm going to wait till 12:15. And just that small amount of stretch gives you an ability to understand. It's like, wow, I might have even been able to go longer without that. And then you realize that you can do the same thing when you park your car, park it further, walk there. Don't take the elevator, take the stairs. Small, simple things like that. It's almost like gratitude. You put it into your daily life, and all of a sudden, before you know it, you run into an adversity and you kind of smirk and you go, huh, 6 months ago, that might have knocked me down, but today, no, it just adds fuel to the fire.
So I've heard you say it before, and I really love that you say that adversity is relative, because I've gotten that before just through sharing things on LinkedIn. People are like, oh, how do you do this? And I'm like, everything to you is the worst thing you've been through. And so it's all completely relative, and all you can do is take some of these lessons that we're pulling from people like yourself to apply them to your own situation. And so I guess my question would be, when you're struggling, like, I'm assuming it's not always, you haven't, even just applying these principles daily, there's going to be some setbacks.
Always.
So what are the main principles or the main things that you do to kind of get yourself through the setbacks?
There's a lot of different things, but I'll give you just 3 things that I tell people, clients, myself. And there's 3 simple steps. And what you do is you just keep yourself accountable and understand, like, what am I trying to accomplish today? What are my goals today? What is my objective? That's the first thing. And then you say, okay, is what I'm doing right now getting me closer to that goal? So having negative self-talk, feeling depressed, feeling unmotivated, feeling down. And I feel that way too, guys. Don't ever think that I'm like Superman and nothing bothers me. I mean, it's always there. It's always going to be part of it. It's always going to be that, specter that's trying to shadow you. But if you can get used to it and you can kind of identify him in the room and say, I see you. I'm not afraid of you. I want to keep moving forward. If you have that mindset, it's not going to stop you. And then the third thing is to always be present in whatever it is you're doing. So if you can understand, okay, today I'm trying to move forward in whatever this endeavor is, whether it be professionally, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and then ask yourself if what you're doing is getting you closer there. And if it's not, then just try to be objective like a third person and say, okay, so let's try to minimize this. We may not be able to stop the negativity, but try to minimize it. Give yourself, it's like, I'm going to be negative for the next 3 minutes. I'm going to jump up and down and pout and kick and scream if I need to. But after that, it's done. And now I'm going to nip this in the bud. I'm going to move forward. And by being present, it helps you be aware of all those things almost simultaneously. And that's what I would say. It's very functional, and it's something that helps people minimize stuff so they don't wallow in it for hours at a time, because it can defeat you if you allow it. So don't do that.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So Marcus, you've said a couple of things about pain. I mean, you started with pain and discomfort. You kind of transitioned us through to your foundation of strength, and then given us 3 steps of what you both coach and what you do for yourself. If you had to pick a word that described who you were before this happened and who you are now, or if you could give, when you reflect upon yourself, or if you do that still, tell us a little bit about that. What is Marcus before this happened to who Marcus is today?
Marcus the Younger. Marcus the Younger wanted to help as many people as he could, but he didn't understand how. He was unfocused. So while having the idea of wanting to help people is great, if it's a vague notion, you're basically a goal is only as attainable as it is specific. So if I say, I want to be happy, well, what makes you happy? Oh, money's going to make me happy. Well, how much? At what cost? We get caught on what they call the hedonistic treadmill, where we're constantly looking forward, right? And I buy this new car and I'm happy. And then after about 3 weeks, the car loses the new car smell. It gets a ding on it. It's difficult to maintain. All of a sudden now I'm right back to exactly where I was at set point. And so I was kind of doing what a lot of other people were doing. My parents told me to get educated because that's what they did. And then they thought that getting more educated would help me more. The Marcus after Marcus Aurelius, I guess, if you want, I would say it was more of an enlightened standpoint, and it was about minimalism and knocking the stuff down. So if it didn't serve me, I just cut it away. And that's what I would say. I would say before I was not as focused, and now I would say it's more clear. In Zen, they talk about enlightenment, and that's great, but you have to remember too that it's not a state that you get to, and then all of a sudden you can just stop. You're like, oh, I'm there. That's it. All right, I'm enlightened. What's next, guys? What's for lunch? It doesn't work like that. You have to constantly revisit those lessons. You have to constantly unlearn the bad things, as it were, right? And it's not even so much as unlearning as so much as relearning more efficiently. So if I'm in a relationship with somebody and I'm giving, and they're not reciprocating, we have to understand that there will be people in your life that even if you lay down as a mat emotionally and they can walk on you, there will still be people in your life that will say that you're not laying down flat enough. So understand that by having boundaries, by respecting yourself, and by being aware of that environment, you can be more respectful to yourself, find people that will actually reciprocate, and you will get what you are worthy of, as opposed to constantly looking for validation outside of yourself or somebody else's ideal of what is success. Find out what you want, find out what is successful for you, stand brutally honest in your truth, and then keep doing that for the rest of your life. And I think that it'll make everybody a lot happier and more fulfilled when it's all said and done.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Marcus, if you're okay with it, I'd like to give the co-host one last chance or the opportunity to, if they had any other follow-up questions, and then we'd of course love to give you the next few minutes to.
No, they only got one, guys. I'm sorry. I'm really busy now, and
I have one.
no.
I have one.
You can't say
Of
no to
course.
Katie. Sorry.
Of course, I'll listen. I'll talk to anybody. Come on.
Okay. What's something that you're unlearning right now?
Right now, I'm unlearning. So, for example, 2017 kind of exploded for me between the book and the TEDx talk, and now I'm having I wouldn't say a hard time, but looking at everything from like a high point view and looking at business and trying to maximize everything. That's what I'm having a hard time with. I'm having to either delegate more often or cull some of the things I'm doing, so that instead of trying to say yes to everybody, I'm having to say no to certain people or to certain things. And I hate doing that because I want to give so much, and I have people that reach out to me from all over. So I'm having to learn to delegate that, and having to learn to say no more often. And by being more selective, I'm able to say yes to the things that are going to make a greater impact more effectively on more people. So, I hope nobody hears this and think that I'm this uppity thing. I'm not like that at all. But because I'm getting more attention, and because I am trying to help more people, and more people want my attention to help them, I have to take that from other places that may not be as I wasn't as able to give before. So that's what I'm having to unlearn right now. And the thing too is to not feel guilty about it. That's what I'm kind of having a little bit of an issue with. So
That's a tough one.
Yeah, it's really hard.
Yeah, I feel like we're all like unlearning.
All of us are like, mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if none of the co-hosts had any other questions, Marcus, I know we've all had a chance to at least get to know you on LinkedIn, and you have chatted or talked with each one of us before, but this is your opportunity to, if you want to ask something, or if you wanted to just get to know us a little bit better. Last few minutes are all yours.
I think I've mentioned it before, but I love what this is. I love that. I mean, I love interviews, obviously, but having it with one person is great. But when you get people that can come from different directions, and maybe you can understand what you were going to say, and then it's like, oh, I forgot what I was going to say, and all of a sudden somebody else comes back and they have a really good perspective, that helps a lot. And by having different people ask different questions, it helps hit a lot of areas that we may have, been blind to before. I thank you guys for everything that you're doing. I love having you all as connections on LinkedIn. Thank you for, letting me come on and talk about myself. I, being a TEDx speaker is great. It's nice being able to impact people. The nice thing is I was up there for 15 minutes, but yet that resolution will continue, and that resolve and that impact will continue. And I love that. The book, The Gift of Adversity, I hope to reach as many people with that as I can. The nice thing with the book, I know that we're a more, video kind of or audio kind of sounding technology today, but books are nice. They kind of open me up to a lot of things. By giving that to somebody else, you can help them through a tough time, or just send them the TEDx talk and that'll help them. And then coaching people and speaking in public is something I enjoy, because that speaking is where the authenticity is. What we're doing right now is where the authenticity is, because we can see each other, we can understand the reaction, and we can, adapt to that. So when I coach people, it really helps me a lot to get a better feel of what they're going through and to help them unlearn things. And then, of course, speaking is amazing, because when you get that person that talks to you afterwards and they shake your hand and they tell you, hey, your words really help, I wouldn't say change my life, but they say that if I speak and I change one person's life, then I've done my job. But I look at it as, if I speak and I don't change everybody's life, then I haven't done my job well enough. So that's what I always push myself towards. So when I'm writing, when I'm putting out content, even when I'm interviewing, just like right now, I want to give you guys as much quality as I possibly can. I had an article where I was mentioning the TEDx talks, and I say that the word value loses its value because everybody says it and they're just saying, oh, I'm going to add value. I want to add quality to you guys. I want to add quality, because if I focus on quality, value will already be in it. But if I'm just saying value, then that's a little bit, ambiguous, and it's difficult to be completely sure what you're trying to get. So thank you all for having me. I'm truly honored and lucky to be here. So thanks.
Marcus, I have a quick question. I'm so sorry. I had to keep myself on mute because
how dare you?
There's a lot of background noise right now because my dogs know how to open doors, and now my office door is open, and I feel awkward if I have to get up and shut it. So, question.
Okay.
I have shared my story, right? And I have these people that reach out to me. So this is more of advice, and I was going to ask you after, but whatever. Okay.
No, we're right here.
All right. So I get on these calls with people who share these stories with me that are just you think this is a Lifetime movie. You don't realize that this is real life. These things happen to people. And then they're like, but it's nothing compared to your story. And I'm thinking, if I went through that, I don't know what I would do, So how do you talk back and respond to people when they share their stories with you? And then, like you said, it's not a competition. It's relative to experience. How do you respond and make them understand that this is a massive battle?
It absolutely is. And it doesn't stop. It's always there in some capacity. I had somebody reach out to me that she had been sold into like human trafficking, and she had been like addicted to drugs, prostitution, the whole thing, through no choice of her own. She was taken when she was 11, and she reached out to me, and it was the same thing where she's like, man, you're so brave and you're so strong. And I'm just like, I don't know what you're talking about. There's no way I could do what you went through. So again, understand that it is relative. And what I found too is a lot of people that have been through the hardest stuff, like the most adversity, have some of the most empathy developed ever, because they understand how hard it is, and they want to reach out and they want to help people that have fallen down. So, and all those people accentuate the positive, tell them, listen, first of all, give yourself a massive amount of credit for overcoming this. Understand that it's not something that you just get over on a weekend. It's not like a retreat. It's something that you're always going to have to battle. And then understand also that by helping other people out, it's going to help you feel like what you went through has more purpose. There's so many times that people will say, man, I went through all this horrible stuff and I don't even know why I did that. Or, they say that, you're supposed to learn from stuff, but I didn't get anything out of it. Well, if you want to know why it happened, ask yourself what you learned from it. And that'll give you the why it happened in the first place. And sometimes the lesson is to never let yourself get back in that position again, if nothing else. So there's always a lesson if we're able to look at it at a high enough view. Does that help?
It does. Yeah, it does.
It's never easy, and you're going to have more and more people reaching out to you, especially now that you're on doing more of what you're doing now. So help them all as much as you can. But again, we can only do so much. We only have so many hours in the day. So don't feel badly. Or what I do is I try to keep connections with all of them and then get back to them when I can. So that's what you got to do.
Marcus, once again, thank you so much for being a part of the UnLearn show, where we discussed breaking bad habits with a purpose and a plan. And if there's anything that any of us can do in the future for you, please don't hesitate. Reach out to us. Let us know what we can do to bring quality to what it is you're doing.
Oh, I love that. Well, thank you so much. Thank you guys, everybody. And I've had a great time. This has been a lot of fun.
Wonderful.